promotion he stole. I never thought one person could quietly destroy another person's life without ever raising their voice. But that's exactly what Ethan Cole did to me, and for almost 3 years, I let him get away with it. My name is Daniel Harper, and back in 2021, I worked as a senior sales analyst for a tech company in Chicago. It wasn't some giant Silicon Valley business. We were mid-sized, growing fast, and trying to compete with bigger companies. The pay was decent. The hours were terrible, and everyone in the office was constantly stressed. Still, I liked the job. I had worked hard to get there. I grew up in a small town in Missouri. My parents worked multiple jobs just to keep food on the table. Nobody in my family had ever worked in corporate America before. So when I got hired at 27, I felt like I had finally made it. For the first year, everything went smoothly. Then Ethan got promoted. Ethan Cole was the kind of guy people admired at first. Tall, confident, expensive suits, perfect smile. He always knew exactly what to say in meetings. Clients loved him. Executives loved him. And somehow, even when he made mistakes, people still defended him. At first, I actually respected him, until I realized how he stayed successful. He stole credit, not in obvious ways. He didn't directly copy people. Instead, he would take your idea, slightly reword it, then present it to upper management before you had the chance. And because he was charismatic, everyone believed the idea was his. The first time it happened to me, I ignored it. I had created a strategy report for one of our biggest clients. 2 days later, Ethan presented the exact same strategy during a leadership meeting. My name was never mentioned once. After the meeting, I confronted him privately. He just smiled. "Relax, Daniel," he said. "We're on the same team." I wanted to believe him, so I let it go. Big mistake. Over the next year, things got worse. Every time I worked on something important, Ethan somehow inserted himself into the project at the last second. Then he'd take the spotlight. Meanwhile, I stayed invisible. My coworkers noticed, but nobody wanted to challenge him because Ethan had one major talent. He knew how to manipulate powerful people, especially our regional director, Karen Mitchell. Karen trusted Ethan completely. Whatever he said, she believed. If Ethan blamed someone for a mistake, that person got punished. If Ethan recommended someone for promotion, they got promoted. He had influence over everything, and eventually, he started targeting me directly. It began with small comments, passive-aggressive jokes during meetings. Daniel's great with spreadsheets, but maybe don't ask him to handle pressure. People would laugh awkwardly. I'd pretend it didn't bother me. But inside, I was furious. Then came the performance reviews. For 2 straight years, my reviews had been excellent. Suddenly, after Ethan became my supervisor, my ratings dropped. Not enough to get fired. Just enough to block promotions. I knew exactly what he was doing. He wanted me stuck beneath him. One night after work, my friend Marcus pulled me aside. Marcus worked in IT and had known Ethan longer than I had. "Be careful around him," Marcus said. "Why?" Marcus looked around before answering. "Because Ethan's done this before." Apparently, at Ethan's previous company, several employees had complained about him taking credit for their work. But nothing ever happened, because Ethan always made sure he looked clean. He never left evidence. That conversation changed everything. I stopped trusting Ethan completely, and once I started paying attention, I noticed patterns. He forwarded private emails to executives. He secretly blamed junior employees for missed deadlines. He manipulated sales numbers to make himself look better. And worst of all, he loved humiliating people publicly. One afternoon during a company meeting, Karen asked why a client account had failed. Even though Ethan had handled most of the project, he looked directly at me. "Daniel was responsible for the final analysis," he said. That wasn't true. But before I could respond, Karen interrupted. "That's disappointing, Daniel." The entire room went silent. I felt my face burning. Ethan sat there pretending to look sympathetic. That night, I drove home shaking with anger. I barely slept. And around 2 in the morning, I made a decision. If Ethan wanted to play games, I was done being passive. I was going to beat him. But I needed patience. People like Ethan only lose when they become too confident. So I waited. For months, I documented everything. Every suspicious email. Every altered report. Every meeting where Ethan lied. I kept copies on a private hard drive at home. At first, I wasn't even sure what I planned to do with it. I just knew someday I might need proof. Then, something unexpected happened. The company announced a massive expansion. They were opening a new division in Texas, and there would be one executive director position available. Everyone knew Ethan wanted it. The promotion came with a huge salary increase, bonuses, and stock options. It was the kind of position that could completely change someone's career. Suddenly, Ethan became even more aggressive. He started micromanaging everyone. He forced employees to stay late. He took over projects that weren't his. And he became obsessed with appearances. He needed upper management to think he was perfect. Meanwhile, the office atmosphere became toxic. People were stressed constantly. Several employees quit. But Ethan didn't care. As long as he kept climbing higher. One Friday evening, I stayed late finishing a report. Around 8 o'clock, I realized Ethan was still in his office. I walked past his door and noticed he wasn't alone. Karen was inside. The door wasn't fully closed. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but then I heard my name. Daniel isn't leadership material, Ethan said. Kan Sai-hu. He's one of our strongest analysts. Sure, Ethan replied. But he lacks confidence. He struggles under pressure. Honestly, I'm not sure he's loyal to the company long term. I froze. This man had spent years quietly destroying my reputation, and Karen believed him. That moment changed me. I stopped seeing Ethan as a difficult coworker. I started seeing him as a threat. Over the next few weeks, I became extremely careful. I never argued with him. I never reacted emotionally. Instead, I acted supportive. I complimented his presentations. I volunteered for extra projects. I made him comfortable, because arrogant people become careless when they think they've already won. And eventually, Ethan made a huge mistake. One of our biggest clients requested detailed quarterly revenue data. The numbers Ethan had previously reported to management didn't match the real figures. At first, I thought it was just a mistake. Then I dug deeper. It wasn't a mistake. Ethan had intentionally inflated sales numbers for almost a year. Not enough to trigger an audit, just enough to make his performance look exceptional. I couldn't believe it. If executives discovered this, it would destroy him. But I needed undeniable proof, so I spent nearly 2 weeks carefully gathering documents, internal reports, client emails, sales logs, edited spreadsheets, everything. The deeper I looked, the worse it became. Ethan hadn't just manipulated numbers. He had blamed employees for problems he caused. He had hidden failed projects. And he had even pressured junior staff into changing reports. I realized something terrifying. If the company ever got investigated, Ethan would absolutely sacrifice everyone else to save himself, including me. That's when I stopped feeling guilty. A few days later, the company hosted a huge corporate conference in Chicago. Executives from all over the country attended. This was Ethan's big moment. Everyone expected him to receive the Texas promotion. During the conference, Ethan walked around acting like a celebrity, laughing loudly, shaking hands, talking about leadership. Meanwhile, I quietly prepared. The final presentation happened Friday afternoon. Karen introduced Ethan as a visionary leader. He stepped onto the stage, smiling confidently, and for 30 minutes, he delivered the performance of his life. The audience loved him. Executives nodded along. People applauded. Then Karen announced there would be a short break before the promotion announcement. That's when I made my move. Earlier that morning, I had scheduled an anonymous email. It contained every piece of evidence, every manipulated sales report, every altered document, every email, and I sent it directly to corporate compliance, as well as 3 senior executives, including the company's CFO. I remember sitting in the conference room pretending to check my phone while my heart pounded so hard, I thought I might pass out. 10 minutes later, everything changed. Karen suddenly received a phone call. Her expression shifted immediately. She stood up and left the room quickly. Then another executive followed. Then another. People started whispering. Ethan looked confused. About 20 minutes later, 2 compliance officers entered the conference room. They walked directly toward Ethan. I will never forget the expression on his face. For the first time since I met him, he looked nervous. One of the officers quietly asked him to step outside. The room went silent. Nobody knew what was happening. Ethan forced a smile and followed them out. He never came back. The conference ended early. Rumors spread instantly. By Monday morning, the entire office knew. Ethan had been placed under investigation. At first, management tried to keep details private, but eventually the truth came out. The company discovered extensive financial manipulation tied directly to Ethan. Several executives were furious, especially because the company had nearly promoted him. Karen looked completely shocked. Apparently, Ethan had lied to her for years, and once investigators started questioning employees, everything unraveled. Junior staff admitted Ethan pressured them. Managers revealed missing information. Clients complained about inaccurate reports. The company's legal department got involved. And within 2 weeks, Ethan disappeared completely. No goodbye email. No announcement. Just gone. People avoided talking about him publicly. But privately, everyone talked. Some employees celebrated. Others were scared. Because once someone like Ethan falls, everyone wonders who else might be exposed. As for me, I stayed quiet. I never told anyone about the email, not even Marcus. A month later, Karen asked me to meet privately. I honestly thought I might get fired. Instead, she apologized. Not casually, genuinely. She admitted she had trusted Ethan too much, and she admitted my career had been damaged because of it. Then she offered me a promotion. Not Ethan's old position. Something better. Director of Strategic Operations for the new Texas division. The exact role Ethan wanted. I almost laughed. After everything that happened, the position he destroyed people to obtain ended up becoming mine. I accepted immediately. 3 months later, I moved to Austin, new city. new office, new team, and for the first time in years, I actually enjoyed going to work again. One evening after work, Marcus called me. "You hear about Ethan?" "No," I said. Apparently, Ethan had tried applying at several companies, but word had spread. Corporate industries are smaller than people think. Executives talk, recruiters talk, and reputations follow you. Nobody wanted to hire him. Marcus said Ethan eventually left Chicago completely. No one knew where he went. After the call ended, I sat quietly on my apartment balcony overlooking downtown Austin. And for the first time in a long time, I felt peaceful. Not because Ethan lost, but because I survived. For years, I had questioned myself, wondered if I was weak, wondered if maybe I really wasn't good enough. That's what manipulative people do. They slowly convince you that your reality isn't real, until you stop trusting yourself. But eventually, the truth catches up to people like Ethan. Maybe not immediately, maybe not dramatically, but arrogance always creates blind spots. And sooner or later, those blind spots destroy them. The funny part? If Ethan had simply treated people decently, he probably would have gotten everything he wanted. The promotion, the money, the status. Instead, his own ego ruined him, and in the end, the career he spent years building collapsed because he couldn't stop believing he was untouchable. Sometimes the best revenge isn't screaming. It isn't fighting. It isn't even exposing someone publicly. Sometimes the best revenge is staying patient long enough for someone to destroy themselves. And when they finally do, you simply step aside and let it happen.